you would mute your mic. Get them to unmute your mic. Okay. At this time, sir, if you would state your name and DOC number.
Name's Gerald Johnson, DOC number 630772.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, you are a first offender in decent behavior with a juvenile. You were sentenced on February 9th, 2015 to 17 years hard labor with the Louisiana Department of Correction. The first 2 years to be served without benefit of probation or parole with suspension of sentence. Your parole date is October the 3rd, 2020, and you're not eligible for a good time. Also, your full term date is February the 5th, 2023. On the panel today will be Mrs. Pearl Wise and also Mr. Alvin Roche will be on the panel today. And today, what we're going to do, we're going to be asking you some questions, give you a chance to address the board, and the board will come back with this decision. Also, we're going to ask the victim to speak and also someone to speak from the family to be speaking. And on Mr. Gerald Johnson today, Ms. Pearl Wise will be asking you some questions today, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Wise.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make one correction. His full term date is actually February the 5th of 2032.
February 5th of 32. Yes, sir. That's right.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you. Warden, you want to go ahead and give us your report? Tell us how Mr. Johnson has been doing.
He has been here at this institution now for almost 4 years. In that time, he's had 0 disciplinary reports. He's been active in some programs, been very active in church. As far as inmates go, I mean, he's not an issue here at the institution.
Okay, so you know okay, so you've been active in some programs. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
He's participated, and he talked today, in risk management, media work, and a Bible correspondence course.
Thank you, Warden. And what?
Pre-release.
All righty. All right, Mr. Johnson, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Going okay, going good. Hope it goes real good today.
We gotta breathe. We gotta breathe. We gotta breathe. So you've served how many years of the 17-year sentence?
5.5, right at 5.5.
5.5 of the
Yes,
17-year sentence. Okay. And so it's my understanding that you've completed all phases of the sex offender treatment program.
That's him, all 4. I took the facilitators class too. So I
Great.
finished all 4.
Okay, tell me the top 3 things you learned in that program that you didn't know before.
Well, I learned that whenever you hurt an individual, you don't hurt just that one. It ripples out and it hurts their family and your family also.
Okay, anything else?
Ma'am.
Is there anything else? I
Anything
want you to give me the top 3 things you learned.
Well, I mean, I just learned that how things can happen, how they're, trying to avoid the type of people you stay away from, people you should hang with, things of that nature, I guess.
Oh, okay. All righty. Okay. All righty. And if you were successful today, where would you live and how would you support yourself?
Well, I got a wife, 20 years, and I would be staying with her. She's got a nice substantial job with industries back home in Lake Charles. She's a supervisor out there. She's got a good job.
Okay. All righty. Okay. So do you have any work plans?
Yeah, I've got 5 people out there actually that give me a job. I already told me that I have a job waiting if I want it. The one in particular, Mr. Glenn Daigle, that's a good friend of mine. He's already sent a letter in that he would put me to work if I need to be put to work.
Okay, all right. I don't recall seeing the letter. Maybe my colleagues saw it. I don't recall seeing it. You had some medical concerns in 2016. How are you? How are you medically?
How am I medically?
Yes, sir. How's your health?
Oh, my health is good. I'm 72 years old. I mean, I've got a little bit of blood pressure, but other than that, I'm fine.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I don't smoke. I don't drink. So I stayed healthy.
Okay. All right. Good. That's good to hear. We did get a letter from the DA's office indicating that they are opposed. And the DA made the notation opposed, never accepted responsibility and blame victim. There's nothing you can do about it, but I just want to inform you of the other oppositions that as part of the information packet that we receive in order to reach our decision. I see that you are the father of 3 children. Is that correct?
That's correct. I have 3
What's
stepchildren.
that? Oh, they're stepchildren. Okay. Do you have any natural children?
Yes, 3. I got 3 regular with my first wife, and then I've got 3 stepchildren with the wife I have now.
Okay. Tell me about your children with your first wife. What kind of relationship do you have with them?
Oh, that's great. I taught them about fishing, and they play baseball, sports and stuff. I supported them all that. In fact, I coached my 2 boys when they played ball. Never had any issues at home. I mean, I had a good relationship. All my boys good. And my daughter.
So you have 3 boys, 3 sons.
2 boys and a girl.
2 boys.
My oldest is a girl, Mary Renee. My oldest son is David, and the youngest is Stephen.
Okay. So you've maintained contact with them over the last 4.5 years?
Oh, yes, ma'am. They come to visit me regular here.
Good.
Been on my visit. Also, my 3 stepchildren also.
Good. It's good to hear. All right, that's all I had, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Alvin Roche will be asking you some questions, Mr. Johnson.
Okay,
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. How are you?
good. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, I've read your information. It was a very long investigation. I've read every word of the investigation, including all the letters. You have 20 or 30 letters of support.
Right.
You have letters of opposition. Your letters of support comes from neighbors, friends, and just about everywhere. I've
Yes.
read every one of those letters. And I've also read in numerous places in the report that you are an innocent man.
What, sir? I'm sorry.
I also read in numerous places that you are an innocent man.
Oh. I don't know about that. I haven't read the letter, so I don't know.
No, I'm talking about you, your words. You said you are an innocent man.
My letter said that.
No. The report mentions many times that you claim to be an innocent man.
Oh, some of the allegations, yes.
Can you hear me? Can you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir, I did. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you claim to be innocent.
Not totally innocent, no, sir.
Okay. My question is, if you're not totally guilty, why does a 67-year-old man plead guilty, and when he knows he's going to have a 17-year sentence, probably be 84 years old, possibly before you become a free man again. Why does an innocent man do that?
I didn't say I was totally innocent. I pled guilty to the indecent behavior part.
Oh, you pled to the indecent behavior part.
Yes, sir.
What was it, because you thought you might be found guilty of the aggravated incest?
No, sir.
Mr. Wise, that's all I have.
Yes, sir. My screen turned black there on me.
We can hear you, Mr. Wise.
Okay, can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Roach and Ms. Wise, for the questions there. At this time, what I would like to do is some of the guests there, but I want to tell the victims and also the family that's going to be speaking. Anything you say on behalf of this case here should be said directly to the parole board. We're not sitting on here going to bash somebody back and forth. We're not going to do that. It's said directly to the parole board, okay, for you, what you want us to hear. And at this time, I'm going to let the family speak at this time. And if y'all would unmute your mic and one of y'all can speak, okay? Go ahead.
Morning, sir, ma'am, and sir. My name is Heather Johnson. I'm Gerald Johnson's wife, and today with me, I have Glenn Daigle, our friend who is offering Gerald a job. I have Gerald's daughter, Renee, her son, Stephen, my daughter, Morgan, and her husband, Jared. Sorry, David. Sorry. How long will I have? Because I have a nice statement written out that I would like to present to all of you today.
Well, because we're on the Zoom, you know, try to do it as quick as you can. We have a time limit there, so try to do it as quick as we can.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Heather Johnson. I'm Gerald Johnson's wife. Gerald and I met and began dating a little over 20 years ago. On August 4th this year, we will celebrate our 19th wedding anniversary. I would like to spend a few minutes telling you what kind of man Gerald is. Many letters have been sent to the parole board in support of Gerald being released. I would like to reference bits and pieces of those letters that you will not only hear my voice, but the voice of many others that are anticipating his return home and are ready and waiting to support him to transition back into society and the world. Gerald's daughter, Renee Saunier, wrote in her letter, "My dad has been incarcerated for the last 5 years and our family has suffered greatly with him gone. He has always been the leading force in our family and held us to high standards growing up, which is attributed to a lot of our standing in the community today in which we reside. My dad has always been a very present and loving father to me and my siblings our whole lives. He brought us to church every Sunday and taught us the importance of faith and family, the importance and value of a hard day's work, being a part of your community, being humble, being thankful, and to always help those in need. He is well liked and respected in our community. Over 2 years ago, my dad made a mistake that greatly impacted someone's life, and since his incarceration, he has tried to right his wrong by making positive impacts every chance he gets at the facility he is at, by being a role model to all inmates he comes in contact with, which in turn has earned him the nickname Pops by his fellow inmates. He enrolled in every class he could to better himself and will continue this if released. He also church and rosary every week. He has taken full responsibilities for his actions and has expressed great remorse for what happened and will continue to work on making amends with this release. My dad is not a threat to anyone or to himself. If he is released, he has strong ties and a lot of support from friends and family, and that should be considered a very important factor in granting parole. Morgan Leger wrote the following: "My father has missed so many big milestones in all of our lives, and I ask you to allow him to come home so he will not miss any more. He was not able to give me away at my wedding, and to this day that breaks my heart. Please allow him to reunite with his family and friends. He has a huge support system waiting for him." Our friend Terry Terrell wrote the following: I was given a chance to speak on behalf of Gerald's character at his sentencing hearing. Today, I have just as much confidence in Gerald's ability to be a productive member of society. I'm an active CASA advocate, and I would never advocate for something I felt would cause danger to our community. My mother, Gerald's mother-in-law, Jan Freeland, wrote, "When Gerald married my daughter, she had 2 sons, ages 12 and 10, and a daughter, age 8. Each one of those children today comment how much they love and admire Gerald, how he supported them in their schoolwork and activities, and how he has been more of a father figure to them than their own father." My brother, Brennan Freeland, Gerald's brother-in-law, wrote, "Gerald is not only my brother-in-law, but he is a friend and one that provides me encouragement. I ask each of you to allow Gerald a chance to be back home with his family and friends so that we can now encourage him. If granted parole, Gerald has an enormous support group waiting and excited to support him upon his return." Our cousin Candace Dews, who's a previous social worker, stated the following: "Many years ago, I worked as a social worker with a citizens group in Monroe, Louisiana, to provide support and mentor prisoners being released to the Northeast Louisiana area. Our goal was to identify issues that contribute to recidivism and circumvent those circumstances before release for the men we mentored. I would like to tell you how those issues have been met for Gerald Johnson to prepare the road for his release. Gerald has been lovingly supported by his immediate and extended family throughout his incarceration. If paroled, he will be welcomed back by this same loving and supporting family. I believe that such support is essential to the successful reintegration of anyone returning home. There are, in fact, many plans in place for Gerald that will promote his successful reintegration. His age makes him at risk for COVID-19 and other grave health issues exacerbated by crowded prison conditions. He appears to me to be an ideal candidate." This, ladies and gentlemen, go on and on. We have many family members and friends that have written similar letters of support for Gerald's release. As stated in my letter to you dated May 16th, Gerald is not a danger to society nor to himself. He has completed every requirement in order to be considered for parole and has maintained a clean record while being incarcerated. He has shown remorse and is sorry for the pain that he caused to his victim. He's sorry for the pain he caused to her family and to our family and friends. He's been a model inmate and has been a good example and mentor to many others that are there with him. Gerald is a loving husband, father, son, son-in-law, brother-in-law, grandfather, uncle, and friend. She's 91 years old, and she is in early stages of Alzheimer's. She has recently been placed in a care facility due to her failing health. Her biggest desire is to see her son before she dies or before she forgets who he is. It would be a great help to her and our family to have him home to assist with her care and finances. I'm a productive member of society. I hold down a very good job and have maintained our home and our finances since he's been incarcerated. He has a loving, stable home, a secure home to come home to. He has full understanding of all that will be required of him if released. He is aware as to what restrictions he will face, as well as having to register as a sex offender. I have also read and studied the requirements, and we will work together to ensure that he meets those requirements in a timely and effective manner. Our board, Kevin Galley, is also aware and accepting of Gerald's record and understands the requirements as well. In addition, Gerald has a job waiting for him upon his return. Our friend Glenn Daigle is here with us today. He's a very successful local businessman, and he will confirm to you that he is willing to give Gerald a job should he be paroled. In closing, thank you for your time and consideration. My hope is that each of you will be able to see and feel that Gerald Johnson is a good man and that you will allow him to come home to his family and friends where he belongs. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for that speech. That was a great speech. At this time, I would like the victims today, if you would, ma'am, Miss Heather Johnson, would y'all mute your mic? Okay. At this time, the victims today. If you would, unmute your mic and state your name.
My name is Mandy Miller, and this is my dad, Larry Langley, and my aunt, Cindy Tunstall.
Okay, Mandy, whatever you do, I don't know, you may have to come a little closer, but speak loud and clear, because we want to get this on tape, okay?
Yes, sir.
I know y'all all trying to get in the picture, but we need to get your, but if you would, go ahead with your statement. And remember what I said, anything you say it directly to the parole board. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Since August 2010, I've been going through our justice system. That is how I spent my 27th birthday, giving a 3-hour-long statement to the detective. The detective said, "Are you sure you want to do this today?" And I replied with, "Yes, I want my justice." Gerald, you should feel lucky that our justice system is so pro-defendant, because if it were my way, you would be in Angola, where you deserve to live and die. I can't thank my family enough for all the support they have given me over the last 10 years. To understand how long we have been trying to get justice more fully, I need to go back to 1998. In October 1998, Gerald's daughter and my uncle had a child together. In the spring of 2000, I told my mother, stepfather, and grandmother, whom was Gerald's ex-wife, that Gerald sexually abused me from ages of 8 to 14. I told them I didn't want my friends to know what happened to me. And my mother and grandmother said, "Don't worry about it. No one will ever know." After I told my mother, grandmother, and stepfather what Gerald did to me, Gerald was talking and spreading rumors about my uncle because he and Gerald's daughter had a child together. My mother and grandmother found out what he was saying, and they had forced me to call Gerald's house and tell him to stop spreading rumors about my uncle, or I would call and report him to the cops for sexually abusing me. In July 2010, I went to my aunt's house in Texas with my dad for the weekend. This is a picture from that weekend. My aunt and I had stayed up late the night that we went to the Astros game because I wasn't feeling well. We were watching the news and they had an inmate getting the death penalty. I asked my aunt why they were doing that, and she told me because he was sexually abusing a child. And Gerald did that to me. And then hang on, Sue. Sorry, we're back. I told her that Gerald did that to me, and then I clammed up immediately because I didn't mean to tell her. She wanted to tell my dad right away. I told her Gerald was out of the house and begged her not to tell my dad. She told my dad something happened to me, but I was safe and he needed to get me to talk. I wouldn't tell him what happened to me because I was truly embarrassed and I felt dirty. My dad found out at the end of 2000 what happened to me. He went to Calcasieu Parish and reported to Detective Elizabeth Zonbreaker. The detective called my mother for us to come in and do an interview. My mother told me on the way to the interview that my dad was trying to ruin my life and that no one would want to be friends with me if they found out what happened. She said I had to tell a detective that I wouldn't talk without her in the room with me. So that's what I did. At the age of 17, the most important thing is your friends, and I didn't want to lose mine. My mother had muted me by not being my biggest supporter. The last 9.5 years of my life have been some of the hardest and best years of my life. One of the hardest days was August 6, 2010. That day, I said out loud to someone that could help me get justice. It was scary because it made the fact that Gerald raped me and took away my very real. That day will forever be with me. It was one of the scariest and most empowering days of my life because I was no longer afraid of Gerald. September 6, 2011 was another hard day, the day of the grand jury. To sit in a room and tell 12 people what he did to me was harder than I had ever imagined it would be. Once they came back with a true bill of aggravated incest, the pain of the day was completely worth every tear I cried. Every time I had a continuance was a hard day because it felt as if justice would never be served, which I believe I had 21 pretrial dates. January 2013 was a hard day. Stacy called to tell me about the first plea deal that Ron wanted. To plead guilty to 4 years of indecent behavior with a juvenile, 4 years home incarceration, which I was 100% against. And Stacy told me she was going to think about it overnight and would call me the next day. That day, I felt like everything I had been through from the first day I reported what happened meant nothing at all, the ultimate defeat. I felt as if all the pain and worry in I had put my family through was truly for nothing. I felt as if the DA's office was only concerned about the win. I begged Stacy, the prosecutor, for at least an hour not to accept the plea, but it was no use. She knew I was extremely unhappy with the plea, so I had no other options but to put up the fight of my life. My family and I called every possible elected official and anyone we thought would help us to stop the DA. Every person we spoke to said the only hope we had was the media. And I never wanted my name out there as to what happened. January 22nd, 2013, I did 2 media interviews with KPLC and KATC. I never want anybody to know I was raped as a child, but I put myself out there to stop the worst type of injustice I could ever imagine. January 23rd, 2013 was one of the good days because I found out that the courthouse was shut down and the plea would not be accepted. November 17th of 2014 was one of the hard days in the morning and good after lunch. Ron was putting up a big fight that morning, which was Gerald's attorney. But I knew once the trial was going to start and the jury heard all the evidence that he was going to have a guilty verdict, that I knew for sure. After lunch, I was prepared for more of a fight, and then I found out Gerald was going to plead guilty. The reason I accepted the second is because I was not confident in prosecuting DA. I did not feel the DA knew my case well enough and that she would truly battle for me. It was a great feeling for him to plead guilty with jail time this go around, and the fact that he admitted to raping me as a child, which is what he did. When he would have been found guilty of aggravated this, I'm 100% sure he would still have told everyone that I was a liar and he never molested and raped me. But now he has admitted it to all, even if it's a lesser charge. I'm not now, nor have I ever lied about what Gerald did to me. The morning of Thanksgiving 2014 was a terrible day. My dad called and he was having a stroke. I believe that the stress from the case is what caused his stroke to happen. My dad's biggest fear was not being able to be there for me on the sentencing day. I lost a relationship with my grandmother, Gerald's ex, because of what Gerald did to me. They report Gerald raped me because they didn't stigma. They were more concerned about themselves and how they would be perceived than my well-being. In April of 2015, I found out my mother had stage 4 kidney cancer. I was only able to help with the care of my sister, whom is 18 years younger than me, because Gerald was in prison. I truly believe in my heart, had I still been fighting for my justice, I would not have been able to help. Through my mother's short 4-month cancer battle, she began to see how much she had failed me as a mother, the person who should have protected her child. On her deathbed, she apologized for failing me as a mother and not seeing all the scene. I was able to forgive her and let her go away in peace because he is in prison. I have also missed out on some of my godchild's life because of this. I was not invited to her graduation because I believe she didn't want to feel she was putting anyone in an uncomfortable situation. I truly was hurt by missing out on this accomplishment in her life, but I understand how she was probably feeling. You began grooming me at a young age. You would tell me, if you tell anyone what I'm doing to you, I will tell them you are lying. I will tell them you're just mad because I wouldn't buy you something. Or your go-to favorite was, you're going to ruin the family if you ever tell. The first time you began sexually abusing me, I was 8 years old. I have no idea how an 8-year-old child can hold any sexual appeal. That is truly disgusting to me. You said, let me look at your baby doll's boobies, show me yours. Then it progressed to look at your baby dolls or your Barbie's tooties, show me yours.
Do you remember when you taught me how to clean an uncircumcised penis on the wooden bench in the living room? I do. You told me how to pull back the skin and wash under it so that it would not smell. You showed me exactly what to do while you sat on the wooden bench in the living room and I sat on the floor in front of you. Or when my mother had me call you after the interview with Michael Jackson and Oprah Winfrey before he married Lisa Marie Presley. In the interview, Oprah asked Michael if he was a virgin and something in the interview about a period. I felt like that was the point in my abuse, that you were no longer nervous about my mother or grandmother realizing what you were doing to me. I felt like that was the first time I was truly alone, that my mother and grandmother didn't care about me. Or when you told me what an orgasm was when I was 10 years old, you told me it would throb like after you finished playing and your heart was start beating really hard. Do you remember the first time you raped me? I do. It was a few months before I started my period, and I started at 10 and a half. It was daytime, and Ursula and Michelle were off doing their own thing. You called me into Ursula's room, and when I walked in, you shut and locked the door as soon as I walked in, and you told me to go sit on the bed. You had a porn on, the one with the blonde-haired girl sitting on the red couch, sticking those beads in her vagina. Then you said, let's play your grandma's favorite game and do what they do in the movie. I said no. Then you sat down by me on the bed and started rubbing my breast and my vagina. You put a towel under me. You pulled down your pants and mine. You were wearing a white V-neck shirt. You started holding me down. Then you put your penis in and I started screaming for you to stop. You just looked at me and you laughed with that monstrous smile on your face. And to know that you actually enjoyed raping me and you continued raping me for 3.5 years. And it only stopped because I stood up to you. Do you remember riding horses at your uncle's property? I do. We were riding and you packed the lunch. So we stopped for lunch. When I went to get up and get back on the horse, she pulled me down. You started raping me and talking about my Uncle Eric's penis. Or when Ursula and Michelle would go walking, I was trying to go outside and you stopped me. You raped me on the living room floor. Or when Christy Lee was at you and Ursula's house, you and Ursula got in a big fight and she left. God only knows where she went. Michelle was doing her thing. When Ursula left, you made Christy and I tequila sunrises. It was her first time to ever drink. You went in the bed, and after you went to bed, Christy and I got good and drunk. Christy wanted to go skinny dipping, so I went and listened at your door and you were snoring. So we went skinny dipping and walked outside, and you walked outside in only a towel and you got in the pool. You got in the pool naked. You walked up behind Christy and rubbed her shoulders and put your penis on her butt. And she looked at you and said, what the F are you doing, Gerald? Don't touch me. Then we got out of the pool and went in the house and went into the bedroom to get dressed. You walked into the bedroom and I was trying to get dressed. You told Christy to get out and you would help me get dressed. So Christy walked out. She came back in the room a few minutes later. You were laying on the bed next to me when Christy walked in the room with a porn on. She told you to get out now. I begged her not to tell, and she never did. How about the time you took me to the hotel room? It was nasty. It had a nasty orangish brown carpet and had a horrible smell, like a bar after it closes, like a nasty, musky odor. The bathroom door was so.
Okay, now we gotta speed it up there if you can, because we don't have so long on these meetings.
One page left, I think.
A little bit more.
Yeah,
Okay.
we all read that page. We all got that in our file. We read over that page.
Okay. Tell them how you feel about him getting out.
For the last 5 years and 4 months, 5 years and 4 months ago, I had instant relief when Judge Goodell sentenced Gerald to 17 years. I feel like all the tears, heartache, trauma, nightmares and flashbacks, and the fighting that my family and I put forth since August 6, 2010 finally worked it. I don't feel like I have to worry about seeing Gerald in the stores anymore. I don't feel like I have to worry about my husband and dad running into him. I feel like my family has finally had some normal that we desperately needed and deserved. I have finally had peace knowing that Gerald is in prison and no longer allowed to live as a free, innocent person. I have lost countless hours of sleep because of what he did to me still to this day. I wake up some nights with flashbacks flashbacks that are so lifelike that it takes me a few minutes to realize it was just a nightmare, that I can never go back to sleep. Please don't release Gerald for parole. I want the full 17 years, not only for my justice, but for my family members who never got our own justice for whatever reason. He has shown no remorse for what he did to me. He pled guilty in court, turned around and smiled at his family. He acted as if he has done nothing wrong, as if he was the victim in this case, and that really makes me sick. Please don't release him. I will not be his release. I feel like I will regress from what I have been able to allow my kids to do. The last 5 years, I have had a lot of work for me. Working on trusting people in general to be around my kids, trusting in people's actions. I've been able to allow my kids to go to sleepovers with a select few friends, and even allowed my oldest son to go on vacation for 4 nights to Orange Beach last year with one of his best friends. I don't want to go backwards. I know deep in my heart I will not be okay if he is released. I battled hard for the last 4.5 years through the court system to get my justice, and have battled just as hard the last 5 years to stay a stronger and more trusting person. I'm still battling to this day. Please do not release him because of COVID-19. He is the same risk as he would be in society, probably more so in society than he is in prison. Parole board members, I'm begging, please don't release Gerald. He has already taken so much of my life from me. Don't let him take any more. I'm still fighting every day not to let what he did to me affect my life. It is a daily battle of attempting to trust people around my kids and allowing them to have a normal childhood because of Gerald sexually abusing me. I fight every day to be a survivor and not a victim. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time there. That was a good statement. At this time, if you would, mute your mic. And Mr. Gerald Johnson, I'm going to let you give some closing statements there. Is anything you'd like to say? Do we have any law enforcement officials there today?
No,
Okay.
sir, we do not.
All right. At this time, Mr. Johnson, you would give your closing statement.
Well, I wrote it down because I can't, my mind doesn't think very fast anymore. I've been incarcerated 5.5 years and have no write-ups during these times. I've been at RLC for over 3 years. I worked on the paint crew for 1.5 years and transferred to the light crew, which I volunteered for both, and I still hold the light crew job as of today. I never had a juvenile record or an adult record. I've worked hard every day of my life. I've never stopped bars on my way home. I've always went home to my family. This incident happened 25 years ago, a one-time thing, and it's haunted me mentally all these years. And but I do have a conscience. There has been no other incident before or after this one. I'm sorry for the pain, not only from Miller, but also from my family. Love kids. My heart goes out to the small kids. My wife and I volunteered with Glenn and Joe Daigle to raise money for St. Jude's. Our first year we raised about $12,000. Our 8th and 9th year, both those years, we raised approximately $98,000 for those kids. Our trail ride stretched for over 3.5 miles, and Glenn and Joe Daigle took first place national with St. Jude. Was flown up to Tennessee and received an award for that. And I plan to continue that if I ever get home. I have never done drugs and not an alcoholic. I have no anger issues. I've never even smoked a cigarette in my life. I'm 72 years old, retired businessman and family man at heart. I have a wonderful wife who stood by me every step of the way, visits me regularly every other week for the past 5.5 years. My daughters and sons and family have visited regularly too. They've all stood by me and they know the kind of person that I am. And especially my mom at 91. When I talk to her every day, she cries when I know when I'm coming home. I've had, like you've noticed, 25 or more letters written that came from all my family members and from 5 different states. I pray y'all have read all of them. because these people know who I am best, at best. Truly sorry for the pain I caused Ms. Miller and everyone else. I realize when you have someone hurt someone, it ripples out to their families as well as your own. I ask not only for myself, but for my wife and my 91-year-old mother and all my family to please send me home. I do not want any more hurt for anybody. I pray for Ms. Miller daily. Asking God to ease her pain. I know she can't forget, but I ask her to forgive. But thank you for your time.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, thank you. If you would mute your mic. And at this time, the board will be voting. And we're going to be starting with Ms. Pearl Wise. I'll be voting at this time.
My vote today is to deny parole because of victim opposition, law enforcement opposition, and according to the Tiger score, you are a moderate Tiger score. That is my vote.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Alvin Roche.
Mr. Johnson, this is one of the most important decisions I've made in 4.5 years on this committee on parole. Let me preface this by saying I am so glad to hear that you took responsibility for your actions in your closing statement. And I'd like to just give you, in my opinion, what incarceration is all about. It's isolation of the offender, it's rehabilitation of the offender, and it is for retribution. I think the isolation is still necessary. I think you've taken the required courses for your rehabilitation. You have completed all 4 phases of the substance abuse program. You've had no disciplinary write-ups. You've had a pretty good incarceration for the last 5 years and 8 months. The last part of incarceration is retribution. In the judge's sentence, he stipulated that you should not even be considered for parole until you serve 1/3 of your sentence. You have not served that 1/3 of your sentence as of today. So that is a primary reason for my decision. The secondary reasons are we have adamant opposition from the victim's family. The victim is vehemently opposed. She is still suffering physically and emotionally from your offense. The whole legal community is opposed to your release. For those reasons, my vote is to deny your request.
Okay, at this time, you have 2 votes to deny, and I also vote to deny because of the same reason. The board decision today was to deny because of the reasons stated. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. And some of you might recognize this cockroach. And that's because I had done his second parole hearing that took place just a couple years after this one. And I got to tell you, it was a different type of hearing. He changed his story. I'll put the link in the description, and maybe I'll pin it to the comment section and have it pop up here. But for those of you who maybe wondered why, you know, the DA, they take these plea deals because the victim doesn't want to come up and speak on behalf, you know, they don't want to put the victim at risk. There's a reason that they gave a lenient plea deal. And because, you know, I do see in the comments section, oftentimes people write, why are you getting so mad, man? They did the plea deal because the victim wanted it. And here we have proof, if you need it, where she was begging, she was pleading with the DA, and the DA did not want to go to trial. And she had nothing left to do but to go to the media to hold the DA accountable. And she only took the plea deal because she knew the DA was pushed in the corner. The DA wasn't going to go into it full-heartedly, wasn't going to take it serious. The DA didn't want to be there. So she took the plea deal, which was, I would say, the right move, because how are you going to go to trial with a DA that feels that they were blackmailed, so to speak, into even going to trial? I'm sure there are cases where the victim wants to. We've seen that too, where the victim agreed to go to a plea deal, although oftentimes we see in those cases that they had no understanding that they would have to show up to parole 2 years after the deal, and then every 2 years moving forward, because that for some reason isn't explained to them. We've seen over and over and over again in the state of Louisiana how these DAs go to trial. They go to trial to make sure that $600 isn't going to go to commissary for an inmate that had a possession offense. Oh no, that money it was obtained illegally because he was distributing, and he then files a lawsuit and says no, it wasn't, and they'll go to the jury trial to prove that it was over $600 because it's their ego. They'll go to jury trial over someone who steals a purse. But when you have the victim saying, pleading and begging and doing everything, no, I want to put him, he belongs in Angola. They don't want to do it. And I think Mr. O'Shea misunderstood his final statement, and maybe I say that with some because I've now seen his second hearing, which includes Mr. Freeman, Ms. Wise again, whatever, and Mr. Marabella. And I say whatever because if you remember, she started off this interview with asking the warden how he's doing, ask him 3 things he learned from the programs, and his health, and that was it. That was the end of the interview. One thing was interesting is they let both sides speak. They only had 1 speak at each instead of 3. There was no cap. And she did speak for a long time. I thought it was rude how Mr. Wise, they're not related to Miss Wise, but similar styles and interviewing. I did, you know, she spoke for, I think, 17 minutes, which would be a record. Now, this was 2020. They were new to this. Maybe they didn't have all those rules in place. And he could have interrupted her in a more empathetic way. Here she is literally bleeding, crying her eyes out. And delivering with, I must say, just excellent delivery. And, you know, like, she was just incredible. And for him, the way that he cut her off it's just But it's the next one. Yeah, it's Mr. Marabella, and he does a good job, in my opinion. But so I was saying that I thought Mr. Roche misunderstood. He said you took accountability, but I think it was misunderstood. See, he's and again, this is from seeing the second hearing. He's taken accountability for, like, what he started off the speech with, for the incident in the pool, not after the pool, but getting into the pool because there was another witness in that case. But that's for getting naked in the pool. But he wasn't admitting in that final speech to anything that he had just done, in my opinion. And man, there's one thing I can take away from this survivor, because she really did. She fought to have him. She's not kidding when she said that she went to the media. Here it is. She went to the media. From 8 to 14 years old, she said that she's speaking out against the plea deal. And the plea deal, if you remember what she said, it was going to be for house arrest. 4 years house arrest. I'm going back to the initial tangent about the corruption, about the DAs. That's the deal that they were going to break with him. 4 years house arrest. Jeff Davis Parish District Attorney Michael Cassidy accepted a plea deal from aggravated to indecent behavior, and the sentence is 4 years house arrest. You have to see it to believe it. This is not the first time we have seen house arrest and probation sentences for people who have done similar things. And that's why she went public. And the district attorney refused to speak to them when they reached out. In exchange for the guilty plea, we're getting a guaranteed conviction. We're preventing the victim from having further traumatized by getting on the stand. We're avoiding any mistakes that would occur. Certainly, we're also ending case and bringing closure versus having to hold the whole appellate process, he said. This is what the district attorney said. Meanwhile, she's yelling every day that I don't want a plea deal, that I want to get on the stand. Clowns. If you needed any proof, it's right here. Here it is. However, Mandy is willing to testify. I would love to get on the witness stand and tell the judge and the jury exactly what happened to me, exactly what he did to me. Can't make it up. Can't make it up. Wanted proof that corruption does exist. There it is. And According to his LinkedIn profile, he's still a district attorney. Let's see. Michael Cassidy, the former Jeff Pierce District Attorney, served the position for 30 years, particularly representing Davis School Board. Gosh, he was the head of the school board. He was, what? Representing the Jeff Davis School Board. This guy who would give 4 years of house arrest was the, what? Oh my gosh. This specific experience and expertise, as well as the general knowledge Operation District Attorney Office, will benefit the board and DA office. He lives in Jennings. Yeah, only they knew. Now, is it fair to judge a man by one action for a 30-year career? No. We'd have to know his record. We have to know his statistics. But I'll tell you, this one sample that we have is disgusting. I am fighting every day to not be a victim, but a survivor. And you are a survivor, and you are a hero, and you are a champion, and we salute you. With that, I'll let you go.